Hey, Joe here. It's been about a week since I posted my video asking for some questions from you guys. I've received a few and today I'm going to answer them. The most popular question I was asked was about one of my tattoos, the 1234 tattoo, or the 1234 tattoo. It was asked by Mr. Ben Stoner, as well as Godsmack Fan 87 and Nismo Sir Broski Butters. The tattoo comes about from my good friend Morgan one day telling me about how a lot of times when he glances at the clock, he sees the time 12:34. He could be in the middle of doing something really important and be compelled to look at a clock, and sure enough, 12:34 is the time. Sometimes both times during the day, sometimes many days on end. Ever since he told me that story, same thing happens to me. I'll be driving down the road in my car, just look down at the dash clock, I don't even know why. Well, it's because it's 12:34 every time. So we kind of joke about it. If we see it, we take a picture of it, send it to each other, and sometimes we think it's good luck, sometimes we call it a curse. We decided to get what I like to call BFF tattoos. I got mine on my wrist, he got his on his ankle. So that's the story of the 1234 tattoo. This question asked by DSM Dan 18. DSM Dan 18 wants to know, do I trim my beard myself or does the barber do it? I trim my beard myself for the most part. When I get my hair cut, sometimes they will trim the sides here to match the hair where it's been cut. But for the most part, I handle it myself. A question I've been asked pretty frequently is, why did I choose front-wheel drive over all-wheel drive? Lao J asks this question today. The reason I chose front-wheel drive is mainly for simplicity's sake. I love all-wheel drive. I've owned all-wheel drive DSMs before. Obviously the traction is a really good feature of all-wheel drive. People are cutting ridiculous 60-foot times on pretty basic setups with all-wheel drive cars. But I prefer the simplicity of the front-wheel drive. I prefer having only a transaxle with two axles that come out either side of it. That's it. I don't have to deal with a transfer case or U-joints or drive shafts or rear ends or rear axles. Those parts break. Those parts are expensive to replace and to upgrade. They also eat up some horsepower, and they also add quite a bit of weight. So I feel like a well set up front wheel drive car doesn't give up a whole bunch to an all wheel drive car. And what it does give up, it makes up for, to me, in stress of not fixing and not paying for all those all-wheel drive parts. Connor Whitehead asks, what are my plans for the engine? Am I going to rebuild it? Am I going to send it off to a shop? What modifications do I have planned? Well, the answer is that the car that I bought was a base model Eclipse with a 1.8 liter engine in it. So I don't have an engine for this car at this point. But I plan to run a 4G63 based engine. I've had many different ideas, from running a long rod 2.1 to a standard 2 liter to a 2.3 stroker, 2.4. I really bounce it around quite a bit. But I believe at this point I've decided that I'm going to basically build this car in a two-stage process. I'm going to build it with the goal of running in street classes to begin. Street classes generally will limit you to a 62mm turbo. Sometimes they let you get away with a 67 if you run a DOT tire, but I don't want to be limited at any event with any sanctioning body. So the common denominator is the 62mm turbo. Another common denominator is that there's generally not nitrous allowed in those classes. So I believe with the automatic transmission that I plan to run, my best way to get my turbo to spool in a reasonable amount of time at the line on the brake is to build a 2.3 liter engine. So I'm pretty sure that's the direction I'm going to go. I'm probably going to go with aluminum rods and high compression. If you need any more detail than that, feel free to send me another question. Stephen D has a few questions for me. What a sexy Sportster, he says. Is it stock? My Sportster is a 2011 Sportster 48. It's a 1200 fuel-injected motor. It's not stock. I bought it used with just over 1,000 miles on it. And it had aftermarket mufflers basically on it with stock pipes. And what I did was I took the aftermarket mufflers off and I put the factory mufflers on. I took it to my local Harley dealer and I had it dynoed. I then put the aftermarket Screaming Eagle 2 mufflers back on it, as well as a full K&N filter kit with the aluminum backing plate, and Harley's own tuning software and tuning device. I preferred the Harley product because it actually reflashes the ECU. It's not a piggyback. So after I installed those parts, I brought the bike back to the local Harley dealer and had them re-dyno it. And you can see in this dyno graph, the difference was pretty substantial for an intake, exhaust, and a tune, basically. If you could get this kind of percentage gains on your DSM or your GTR or whatever car you happen to be driving, you'd be pretty happy about it. Stephen D also asks, what are my plans for the interior of the Eclipse? The interior of the Eclipse will appear pretty complete. You'll see a factory dash and factory door panels, center console, carpet. It's even going to have back seats and all the plastics in the back seat area. The dash is going to basically be just a shell. There won't be any heater AC under there. There's going to be some extensive lighting work that's not going to be immediately apparent when you look in the interior. The one thing you will see when you look in the interior is the roll cage and window net and safety features like that. You'll also see a pair of aluminum Kirky front seats. But the rest of the interior will appear to be stock. Stephen D asks, do I need any donations or parts for this project? I do need parts. A lot of the time I need parts. If it's a part I'm having trouble locating, I'll generally post on my Facebook or other social media to let people know what I'm looking for and hopefully be able to locate it. There are some companies that I work with that I'll ask for both new parts or used salvage type parts. But if I'm looking for something, I will definitely mention it in a video or on my Facebook, like I said, or maybe my Twitter, Instagram. As far as donations go, I'm flattered that someone would want to donate towards my project. That's great. It's amazing. If someone does want to donate to my project, they can PayPal me any donations to joebucci@gmail.com. Stephen D also asks, what wheels and tires am I planning? I'm going to start with a street-based wheel and tire setup so that I can drive the car onto the street a little bit and run in the street classes at some events. I'm going to run a set of welds, still narrowing it down whether I'd like the Pro Stars or that I'd like to go for the RTS in black. I'll be running a skinny tire in the rear and probably a good size 26 by 10 sized ET Street DOT slick in the front. Later on, I may put some slicks on it. I probably will run a 24.5 inch slick, as most sanctioning bodies will allow that in the street class, and also in sport front wheel drive, which is a class I'd like to be able to run in the future. YouTube usernames are funny. I'm really afraid I'm going to butcher this name. Jazeel Tarango asks a question. What's your goal? How fast do you want to go in the quarter mile? That's a good question. That's kind of the main goal overall. I've kind of initially set a goal to be able to drive the car to the track, make a 9-second pass and drive it home. On DOT approved tires, I feel like it's a pretty tall order. But I also think it's doable. So that's really my initial goal. I'd really like the car to run 9s at some point and with the initial setup. If I can't do it on DOT tires, I will move to slicks, and I'm okay with it taking moving the slicks to get that 9-second time slip on this setup. In the future, I hope to be able to upgrade the car again to something closer to sport front wheel drive trim. And in that case, the car should be able to run 8s if set up properly within the specs of that class. YouTube user by Turboism, which is a pretty interesting username. Do you have experience with other platforms other than DSM? I'm looking for a first-time project, but here in Europe, they're not that great used parts-wise. After reading that question, I thought about it for a bit, and really, I'm most familiar with the DSM by far. I've done some work on Evos. I've done some work on some of my own cars in the past, other cars I've had. I had a Toyota MR2 at one point. I had a Honda Civic at one point. I had a Datsun 280ZX at one point. And, you know, I turned a few wrenches on those here and there. Learned as I was going. But I'm most familiar with a DSM, especially a 1G DSM and the 4G63 engine. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of good advice for you on where you should look to start your project. I'm not familiar with what kind of cars are readily available or affordable or any of those things in Europe. I've never been to Europe. I'd like to go. But one thing I can tell you is that the 1G DSM built from basically 89 to 94, those parts are becoming really hard to come by. Trying to find OEM Mitsubishi parts is getting to be nearly impossible. And there's not much for aftermarket reproduction support. So I'm finding a lot of parts I thought I would just go ahead and replace on my car. It's not that easy. I'm having to source parts from the junkyard, trying to find the best ones I can, and that sort of thing. So my advice would be to pick something that parts are readily available for. Either something that's relatively new, and there's still plenty of parts available from the manufacturer, or on the other end of the spectrum, something old, something vintage that aftermarket companies are producing replacement parts for. If you're looking to really restore or just improve the appearance of the vehicle and have everything work as intended, then that's the advice I have for you. Michael Byram asks, what's my budget for the build? Well, let me start by saying several years back I had a 94 Talon all-wheel drive that I kind of built with no budget in mind, and I spent a good amount of money on that car. And I drove that car daily and ran the best quarter-mile time of 11:20 at 126 miles an hour in that car, which was pretty fast for the time. We're talking very early 2000s. The problem was that I stressed out about whether or not I was going to break something on that car because I had to drive it to work the next day. So I had so much money in that car and I was so nervous about it, I finally decided to part it out, take a break. Ended up being a very short break. I soon found my 90 Plymouth Laser, which I decided to just go complete opposite, polar opposite, and spend as little money as possible on that car. That car went 11s for $1,800 total investment, including the car. It went 10s for $5,500, and it went 9s for $10,000. All very good performance for the buck. And part of the reason I was able to keep that car so inexpensive was because that was a track-only car. There was no compromises trying to make it streetable, and there was no worrying about whether or not I could drive it to work the next day, which was the nicest part about that car. So it was a trailer car only, never driven on the street. This current car, I kind of want it to be a combination of the two, I guess, the best of both worlds. I want this car to be really, really nice. I want when someone sees this car, I want them to say, wow, that car is really well done. That car's in really nice shape. I also want it to be very fast and very reliable. I initially thought, though I only spent $400 on this car, I expect to put a total of around $10,000 in the chassis. I thought to myself from there, probably another $10,000 in the drivetrain, engine, transmission, axles, that sort of thing. And then I figured between all the electronics and interior gauges, that sort of thing, I expect to spend probably another $10,000. So for a total of around $30,000 invested. It's still pretty early and it's hard to tell, but there's no real tight budget on the car. That's just a basic estimation. I'd like to keep it reasonable so that the car doesn't take me 10 years to build. So I'll keep an eye on the budget, but there's not technically a limit. For my buddy Jeremy up in New England DSM, he asks what kind of equipment I use to make these videos. So I kind of already let him know, but for him and for anybody else who's looking to make YouTube videos like this, I'll just let you know what I'm using. It might be surprisingly basic. Right now, I'm filming myself with a Canon PowerShot ELPH 500 HS. Pretty inexpensive camera, but it works well for me. It has a very wide angle, so when I hold the camera in front of my face fits in the screen well. And that's what I use that camera for the most part. A lot of the times, spur of the moment, I'll just use my iPhone, which I honestly like the overall look of the picture better on the iPhone. I have an iPhone 5S, and the picture on that phone looks great. I also use a GoPro White Edition occasionally. For most of my time lapses, I've used that, and I use it for other shots as well. And that's a really good camera as well. Both the Canon and the GoPro are not very expensive, at under $200 for each of them. The iPhone, you know, who knows what you pay for your iPhone, whether you buy it under contract or out, but everybody has a smartphone these days, and they all take relatively good video. So those are my three main tools. I have a tripod I use occasionally, like right now. I have a mini tripod I use occasionally. And I use iMovie at this time to do all my editing. So nothing real special. At some point I'd like to get a better point and shoot camera. I'd like to get a GoPro Black Edition at some point after I get the car and I'm racing it. I think it would be interesting for some slow motion video and just higher quality video. And at some point I do have Final Cut, which is a little bit better, video making software than iMovie. But iMovie just hasn't let me down at this point. So unless I get bored and I decide I feel like learning Final Cut, or unless iMovie can't do something for me, I'm going to stick with iMovie as long as I need to. So I just got a notification right now that Mr. Nice Guy 5621, it looks like he wonders about the 1234 tattoo. And he also helped answer one of my questions for me, talking about the front wheel drive being simpler to work on, lighter, and for the most part cheaper to run. Billy Burke asks, why isn't my brother in more of these videos? Well, there's an answer to that, Bill. The answer is that this is Joe Wrenches. This is not Tony Wrenches. And although Tony does help me quite a bit, and I really appreciate it, until he gets his own YouTube channel, you're going to see more of me than him here on Joe Wrenches. Firefly's Punch asks about what kind of tools I use in my garage, what I have in here, and what are my favorite tools. So let's take a quick look around and see what we find. This is a recent addition to my garage. An oven that I found on Craigslist that I'm going to use for powder coating. I picked up this powder coating system from Harbor Freight for a good price. So I'm going to give it a shot, see how it works, and see if there's something I'm interested in doing. There'll be a lot of parts that I'm going to want to powder coat on my car. I got some high temp tape and some silicone plugs and caps to be sure that all the threads stay clean and parts that don't need powder coat stay uncoated. I recently met a Joe Wrenches viewer named Nick, who's a welder by trade. I mentioned to him that I was interested in doing some of my own welding too. So he was nice enough to bring me this spare TIG welder he had for me to practice with, and hopefully in the future be able to do small jobs on my car when I need to. A quick rundown of what you see here on this bench that I built. Just a cheap battery charger for when I need to charge batteries. A little grinder there that's I've had for a really long time. I'll be purchasing an additional grinder with some clean wheels on it for when I start doing some welding. I got my Ryobi cordless tools. I have my old blue drill there that came from a kit I've had for several years, and a relatively new green kit that I recently purchased with some new batteries and that sort of thing. Some fuel system parts here. Over here is where I keep all my little kits that come in these molded cases. I have some drill bits, some saw blades, some special sockets, pullers, for pulleys and things like that. Tap and die kits, just all kinds of stuff, mostly Harbor Freight stuff. This is stuff that I only use once in a great while here in my garage. Underneath, you'll find my collection of jack stands. I have a chop saw down there I used to cut metal tubing and that sort of thing. And hiding under those random tool bags there is a generator that I used to bring to the track with me. And hopefully when I make it to the track again, I'll be able to use this some more. Beyond my wooden workbench, I have my big cabinet where I keep all my chemicals. I keep my gasoline cans on top of them, for the most part. And next to that is my Craftsman toolbox. I've had this Craftsman toolbox for around 15 years. At one point, a friend of mine convinced me to go ahead and buy this toolbox along with a good set of tools, and it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made. Looking closer, I have my Allen wrench drawer, sealant and glue drawer, random cutting devices and some markers and stuff. Below that, I have some nut drivers and files, screwdriver drawer, some random GM brake parts and scrapers drawer, some flare wrenches and other random wrenches. In here I have a set of Harbor Freight ratchet wrenches I got mainly because my 14mm ratchet wrench was broken, and this set right here. In the next case, which I do have labeled, 1/4 inch, 3 inch, and 1/2 inch drive, you're going to find 1/4 inch stuff. Looks like my 1/4 inch drive ratchet must be on the bench somewhere. 3/8 drive, plenty of extensions, a couple different length ratchets, and here's my 1/2 inch stuff. I got some specialty tools like this Volkswagen head stud tool, and some large Allen keys that are 1/2 inch drive. I also have some Torx bit tools here in 3/8 and 1/4 inch drive that do come in handy. Moving on to the bottom cabinet, there's the majority of my wrenches, non-ratcheting, full length and stubbies. Down a little lower, just some random pliers, vice grips, side cutters, needle nose, some pry bars, and a really good breaker bar. This is one of the best things you can buy here. They're at Harbor Freight. They're less than $10, and they come in handy. Moving along, in here I have some like woodworking and glue random tools, and a nice little timing light in there that I've had as long as I've had this toolbox. Down a little lower is where I keep my air tools. Mostly, again, Harbor Freight stuff. It serves me well for the most part. I got some impact sockets here, some lug sockets here, and an impact screwdriver that somehow ended up in there. An impact screwdriver, let me tell you, is something that can come in handy. When you have a stuck screw, Phillips head or flathead, that you know you're going to strip out if you try to get it out, you know, the old-fashioned way. This thing, you just place it in there, you hit the end of it with a hammer, and it will break that thing loose. It works really good. Another kind of a random drawer. I got some Dremel parts down here, drill bits, small sledgehammers, and some pullers there, wire brushes, random stuff. Moving along here, I got my sink. Important to clean stuff up, like your hands. And underneath there I keep this blue bucket where I dump my old oil, and some little oil drain tubs underneath there. This jack here, which is generally always in the way. It's the only jack I have right now. I had 2 other jacks that just were old and weren't holding cars up anymore, so one of my next purchases is going to be a nice new floor jack. This is a great lightweight floor jack, but it doesn't lift very high. Underneath here you also see my Craftsman compressor, 5 horsepower, 25 gallon. I couldn't even tell you how old that thing is. A friend of mine gave it to me when he decided to upgrade. I don't even know how old the thing is or was when he gave it to me, but I've had it, again, a good 15 years. I got a little hose reel down there and a little extra hose in case I need to reach out in the driveway. This is my other workbench. It generally ends up full of tools. It's got some stuff just sitting around on it right now. One thing it has is this parts washer. Very inexpensive parts washer. You can get a similar one at Harbor Freight. And handy to have, clean stuff up. I keep some extension cords and work lights around here. A good work light is always good to have. I have a really old junk work light, and I guess I'll probably continue to use it until it completely fails me one day. Over here I have my shop vac, wall mounted. It's convenient and it's out of the way. Another one of my favorite purchases over the years. If you've watched a lot of my videos, you've probably seen the one where I installed these shelves. I definitely made use of them. On these shelves you'll find a lot of new parts waiting to go on Pro Street Eclipse, and you'll find a lot of old parts that are waiting to be gone through, refurbished or refinished, or just tossed in the trash. So these shelves are definitely getting some use. So if you saw anything in any of this video of my garage area that you have a question about, go ahead and leave a comment and I'll answer that question for you. So this has been fun. I've enjoyed answering these questions. I feel like on some of them I was too long-winded, and on others I didn't give enough information. If you want to give me some feedback on that, go ahead and leave it in the comments. I love to get feedback and hear what you guys want to hear more of or less of. So go ahead and leave me a comment down below if you have anything to say. Also, while I have your attention here, I'd like to just thank everybody again for watching my videos. I'm up over 670 subscribers now, and if you're watching this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. There's going to be some cool videos coming up here when I get my car back from Fat House Fabrication. It's going to be really fun to start putting this car together instead of just tearing it apart. I plan to make some more detailed videos as I assemble the car. So definitely subscribe if you want to keep up with those. And at the end of the video, you'll see my Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram links if you want to follow me there. There's also the subscribe button there. And feel free to check out the rest of my videos. Thanks again. I hope we can do this again sometime.